What I meant is that your strategies are so brilliant that, no matter what, the title will not escape our grasp. The consort's expression softened slightly, and she finally said, Billy, you must understand that everything I do is for you. If one day your father passes away and the title falls into someone else's hands, imagine how miserable our position in this household would become. Billy frowned as visions of himself being trampled underfoot by his elder brother, his concubines leaving him one by one, and his once glorious life crumbling flashed through his mind. He quickly shook his head, resolutely deciding to follow his mother's plans. He was determined to claim the title of Prince Juan's successor. But before that, he had to bring Ben Hope into the residence. After another round of begging and pleading, the consort finally relented, agreeing to his request on the condition that he acted discreetly and ensured no outsiders found out. Should anyone inquire, he was to blame everything on Julian. Chapter 41, secretly hiring an assassin. Billy Anderson had just slipped away when a fierce-looking woman quietly snuck into Donghua Pavilion. Leaning close to Princess Juan, she whispered something in her ear. The princess's face darkened as she abruptly stood up and asked, Is that true? Did you see it with your own eyes? The fierce woman, equally alarmed, lowered her head and replied, Your Highness, it is absolutely true. I witnessed it myself. Julian was completely different today, like a demon in human skin, ruthless and merciless in his actions. If she hadn't seen it herself, she wouldn't have believed it. How could a frail young heir suddenly transform into a formidable force? Even the top assassins of the Shadow Moon Tower fell one after another under his hands. Princess Juan's face twisted with rage as her delicate hand slammed onto the table, shattering the sturdy century-old pearwood furniture into splinters. Julian, you dared to play tricks under my nose. No wonder all these years, no matter what I did, you remained unscathed. So, you've been hiding your true power all along. Seeing this, the fierce-looking woman hurriedly asked, Your Highness, should I go and seek assistance from the Eastern Fang clan? Before her marriage, Princess Juan was the second young lady of the Eastern Fang clan. Within the Vermilion Empire, the Eastern Fang clan's status was second only to the Owens bloodline clan, with profound and unfathomable strength. If they secretly lent their support, eliminating someone as insignificant as Julian would be as easy as flipping a hand. Princess furrowed her brows, even the top-tier masters of the Dark Moon Tower couldn't get close. Just how strong was this man? No need to alarm the Dongfang family yet. I'll make a trip to the Dark Moon Tower myself. Her father had once advised her, if something could be resolved personally, then handle it yourself. Only when there was no other choice should she rely on the trump card of the Dongfang family. Under the cover of darkness, Princess Consort went alone to the Dark Moon Tower. Using the token of a customer, she headed straight into the branch headquarters of the Dark Moon Tower in the capital of the Vermilion Empire. The steward, who had been tasked with handling Princess Consort's request, wore a grim expression. The operatives sent out had not returned, and the soul plaques of the assassins in the Soul Pavilion had shattered one after another, signifying their demise. According to Princess Consort, the target was merely a useless man. How could he possibly have taken down 3 top-tier assassins? Princess Consort, you owe the Dark Moon Tower an explanation. How could top-tier assassins from the Dark Moon Tower fall at the hands of a mere cripple? The steward glared coldly at Princess Consort and barked out. Princess nonchalantly waved her hand and replied, in the assassin's line of work, it's not uncommon to encounter such incidents. Why are you pinning all the blame on me? The steward snorted coldly and said, "If it weren't for you calling him a useless person, why would I have sent assassins without investigating?" "That's your business. What does it have to do with me?" She glared at the steward, paused for a moment, and then continued, "I didn't come here today to argue about who's right or wrong. I want to know what your next move is." "Next move?" "The price you offered was only enough to kill a useless person. Now that this useless one has turned into a master, and Dark Moon Tower has lost 3 elite assassins, what else do you expect us to do?" The steward spoke irritably. The Princess of Wan waved her hand nonchalantly and said, "Money is not an issue. What I want to know is whether Dark Moon Tower can still complete this mission." The steward's expression softened slightly. After all, Dark Moon Tower operated in this bloody business for one reason, money. With money, things naturally became easier. For someone who could kill 3 7th-rank martial experts from our Dark Moon Tower in one go, his strength must be at least 8th rank. You know as well as I do that on the entire Eastern continent, 8th-rank experts are not easy to find. The steward looked at the noble and elegant Princess of Wan, his eyes filled with greed. The princess's maternal family, the Eastern Fang clan, was notoriously wealthy, possessing an unimaginable fortune. The Princess of Wan cast a disdainful glance at the steward, stood up leisurely, and pulled out a stack of banknotes from the spatial ring on her finger. Without bothering to count, she tossed the thick wad of notes onto the desk in front of him. "This is at least 200,000 taels of gold. Shouldn't that be enough to hire a 9th-rank assassin?" The steward eagerly grabbed the stack of banknotes, his face beaming with delight as he responded repeatedly, "Rest assured, Princess. This time, success is guaranteed." "Hope so." The princess consort of Wan turned around, unaware of a shadow flitting past outside the study. She walked alone, leaving the Dark Moon Pavilion and returning to the Wan Prince's residence. The steward gleefully counted the silver notes, while the young attendant serving tea chuckled and remarked, "This princess consort of Wan is truly generous. I wonder what deep grudge she holds against Julian." The steward tucked the silver notes into his chest, sipped the freshly brewed tea, and laughed. "What do you know? The Wan Prince is gravely ill and likely won't live much longer. He's only surviving now thanks to ginseng keeping him alive. Julian is the legitimate eldest son of the Wan Prince and his first wife, while the princess consort we just saw is merely a second wife who also has a son. By rank, the Wan Prince's title should pass to Julian, but do you think this princess consort would accept that? Once the Wan Prince dies, her and her son's position in the residence will be as precarious as a flickering candle in the wind. Naturally, she has to plan ahead." The shadow that had left returned again, just in time to overhear the entire conversation. Behind the black veil, a pair of almond-shaped eyes glinted coldly, and under the fabric, the corners of the lips curved into a chilling smile. The shadow waved a hand, and flames erupted. In an instant, the Dark Moon Pavilion was engulfed in a rapidly spreading inferno. The steward, who had just tucked the stack of silver notes into his spatial ring, was caught off guard as a fireball flew through the window, landing directly on the stack of notes. The 20,000 gold tael fortune turned to ashes in moments. The steward had no time to lament his loss. Struggling to crawl out of the fiery hell, he found his body paralyzed, unable to summon any strength. Moreover, his internal organs felt as though they were being scorched, the pain unbearable. His soot-covered face was filled with terror. "The soul plaques in the secret chamber are burning. Put out the fire, quickly." The steward collapsed, and the young attendant beside him fell as well, dying in the same manner. Anyone who joined the Dark Moon Pavilion was required to offer a portion of their soul into specially crafted soul plaques. As long as the person lived, the plaque remained intact. If the person died, the plaque would shatter. Conversely, if the plaque was destroyed, the individual would not survive either. By dawn, the branch of the Dark Moon Pavilion in Vermilion's capital had completely vanished. The princess quickly received the news and immediately sent a pigeon letter to the Dongfang family. The fire at the Dark Moon Tower flared up in such a suspicious manner. She had just left when the fire broke out. The flames were too strange, and the Dark Moon Tower would certainly investigate thoroughly. It could very well implicate her, and at this moment, she needed the support of the Dongfang family. The illness of Prince Wan became increasingly severe, his breath labored. As for Julian, the thorn in Princess Wan's side, he was still alive and well, appearing before her every day. She was so furious that she ground her teeth. After careful consideration, she finally decided to take matters into her own hands. In the quiet of the night, as if the entire world had been swallowed by darkness, a slender figure sneaked into Yan Ding residence, one hand holding a long sword, the other a short dagger, both weapons from the secret martial art of the Lu Yun / from the Dongfang family. Inside, the room was brightly lit. A young man with jade-like features was reading under the light. His right ear twitched slightly, and the corner of his lips curled into a cold smile. The shadow outside the door stood silently, continuously sending out spiritual energy, probing the situation inside. However, the energy she sent out seemed to vanish like a stone sinking into the sea, completely disappearing. Chapter 42, Let You Die. Knowing, she thought to herself, with her peak 7th grade martial arts strength, could she really not sense what was happening behind this decayed wooden door? If you've come, then show yourself. A deep and powerful voice pierced through the intricately carved door. As the words fell, the door opened, and a surge of energy rushed in. The Princess of Wan, dressed in black nightwear with her face covered by a black veil, her beautiful eyes filled with vigilance, finally dismissed the last trace of doubt in her heart. He was indeed no useless man, and yet she had no idea. Time and again, he escaped fatal blows. She thought it was sheer luck, little did she know he was a hidden master. Julian raised his eyes, his peach blossom-shaped eyes full of mockery, and spoke calmly. It's all right, you all go ahead. Clara Blake anxiously looked at Peter. If Julian Quinn couldn't get in, what about Peter? He probably wouldn't be able to get in either. Julian Quinn noticed Clara Blake's worried expression and smiled reassuringly. Don't worry, I'll bring Peter in later. Clara Blake was astonished. Didn't you say there's a barrier here? How will you get in? Julian Quinn smirked. I have my own tricks. A mere spatial barrier is nothing I can't handle. Henry Owen saw Julian pulling Peter back and immediately turned to tease Charles Anderson. Seize the opportunity, make your move while the kid's not around. Charles Anderson said nothing, merely glanced at Julian, then joined Sophia Lewis in blending into the crowd, waiting for the roll call to enter. A middle-aged man holding a list began calling names. Today, there were a total of 60 alchemists and 60 escorts arriving at Clearwater City, making a total of 120 people. The middle-aged man held a jade piece that contained the information and images of everyone present. He carefully cross-checked the details, and after confirming everything, he took out another jade tablet. Closing his eyes, he infused spiritual energy into it while chanting an incantation. From the jade tablet, a pale green light shot out, gradually condensing in front of him and forming a spatial rift. The rift grew larger, resembling a city gate. With a wave of his cloak, the middle-aged man invited everyone to enter. Among the 120 people, some had been to Central Eastern City before, but the majority were witnessing such a domineering spatial barrier for the first time, marveling silently. Once everyone had entered Central Eastern City, the massive spatial rift resembling a city gate slowly closed. The group of flying beasts gradually took off, turning back the way they came. The vast open land was left with only Julian Quinn and Peter Blake. Julian Quinn strolled leisurely, as if searching for something. Suddenly, he stopped, gazing into the empty space ahead, and calmly said, "This is the place." Suddenly, he raised both hands, his 10 fingers slightly curved, and slowly tore them apart to the sides. Quickly, a spatial rift appeared before him. He pulled Peter along and stepped inside, and the rift behind them slowly closed. All contestants participating in the Alchemist Guild's Grand Tournament were arranged to stay in the Guild's residential area. Here, regardless of your previous status, everyone was treated equally. Whether it was accommodations or daily necessities, everything was identical. Clara Blake, Sophia Lewis, and other alchemists were assigned to Zone 3, while Charles Anderson, Henry Owen, and their companions were placed in Zone 4. Clara Blake, did Julian the Heir and Peter really just leave like that? Suddenly, he raised both hands, his 10 fingers slightly curved, and slowly tore them apart to the sides. Quickly, a spatial rift appeared before him. He pulled Peter along and stepped inside, and the rift behind them slowly closed. All contestants participating in the Alchemist Guild's Grand Tournament were arranged to stay in the Guild's residential area. Here, no matter what your previous status was, everyone was treated equally. Whether it was the accommodation or daily necessities, everything was identical. Clara Blake, Sophia Lewis, and other alchemists were also arranged in the same manner. Here, regardless of your previous status, everyone was treated equally. Whether it was accommodations or daily necessities, everything was identical. Clara Blake, Sophia Lewis, and other alchemists were assigned to Zone 3, while Charles Anderson, Henry Owen, and their companions were placed in Zone 4. Clara Blake, did Julian the Heir and Peter really just leave like that? Those in Area 3, while Charles Anderson, Henry Owen, and their companions were in Area 4. Clara Blake, Julian the Heir, and Peter just left like that? Sophia Lewis still couldn't believe it. With Clara Blake's personality, she would never let someone else take care of her son for such a long time. Clara Blake calmly replied, "Who said they left?" She suddenly glanced out the window and added, "Aren't they coming right now?" Sophia Lewis followed her gaze and saw that the previously empty windowsill now had 2 heads, one large and one small. Who else could it be but Julian Quinn and Peter? Julian Quinn glanced at Sophia Lewis, as if regarding him as a mere passerby. The usually calm and composed expression on Sophia Lewis's face shifted slightly. He truly couldn't believe his eyes. He clearly remembered that when the spatial rift closed, Julian and Peter were still outside. Yet now, the two stood right before him. What on earth was going on? Could it be that he possessed the ability to tear through space? How could this be possible? How old was he? He was the same age as him, and even if he had started cultivating in his mother's womb, there was no way he could have such power. The Grand Alchemist Tournament has finally officially begun. A total of 380 participants have joined, representing over 100 nations across the Eastern continent. An elderly man with silver hair and a rosy complexion appeared on the podium of the tournament hall. He loudly addressed the 380 alchemists below. Everyone here is among the elite alchemists of the Eastern continent. Today, we gather not only to compete but also to challenge ourselves and push our limits. Only under immense pressure can one truly reveal their real potential. I hope everyone gives their utmost effort. As long as you make it to the top 3, you will have the chance to enter the alchemy palace and select the most precious elixir of your desire. This is the ultimate reward of the tournament. However, this time, there is an additional prize, the Dragon's Heart Flame. Everyone surely knows what the Dragon's Heart Flame represents. As long as you reach the top 3, you will have the opportunity to enter the Gate of Heart Flame. If you can subdue the Dragon's Heart Flame, then it will belong to you. So, everyone, please showcase your true abilities, unleash your infinite potential, take on the challenge, defeat your opponents. The competition begins. Chapter 51, Where is your potential? Dragon Heart Flame. Clara Blake's beautiful face lit up. If she could obtain the Dragon Heart Flame and use it to refine the blood elixir, the medicinal properties would undoubtedly improve, significantly increasing the chances of curing Peter. For dear Peter, I must make it into the top 3. I must conquer this Dragon Heart Flame. 380 alchemists stepped into their respective alchemy zones, summoned their cauldrons, and received the recipe handed to them by the attendants. The recipe contained only a few words, as the heart desires. This meant that the competition rules allowed contestants to freely demonstrate their skills. Whoever crafted the highest grade pill with the best quality would be the winner. Clara Blake summoned her fire cauldron. She didn't rush to take out her ingredients but quietly observed the others around her. 380 people, a grand lineup, not just for show. Every alchemist here was a prodigy, the pride of their respective regions. Each person exuded confidence. Clara Blake glanced at them, and they were also evaluating one another, gauging the strength of their opponents. According to Clara Blake's perception, apart from a few individuals who could pose a threat to her, the rest were essentially not worth worrying about. Clara Blake contemplated the alchemy formulas. In her previous life, she had memorized all the formulas within her clan since childhood, from low grade to high grade. As long as it was a formula from the pill sect, there wasn't a single one she hadn't studied. The highest grade formula in the pill sect was for a mid-level 9th grade pill. There were no formulas beyond that. In her previous life, Clara Blake's strength had only reached the 8th grade. The only time she ever crafted a 9th grade pill was with the assistance of the clan elders. Since her reincarnation, she hadn't attempted to craft anything above 8th grade. Now, however, she felt an urge to give it a try. At this moment, her martial strength had already reached the 9th grade, and her soul power had naturally advanced as well, providing a foundation for crafting a 9th grade pill. In the Eastern continent, how many people could truly reach the 9th grade realm? As the silver-haired, youthful-faced elder had said, how could one know their potential without giving it their all and trying? Having made her decision, Clara Blake began taking out the necessary ingredients listed in the formula. The 9th grade revival pill had the ability to resurrect someone whose soul had not yet dissipated. The formula for the revival pill had been lost for ages. In the Eastern continent, it had been thousands of years since there was any trace of the revival pill. It was a treasure among treasures, rare and nearly unattainable. Clara Blake's expression turned serious. This was her first attempt at crafting a 9th grade pill. She was fully aware that without absolute certainty, ninth-grade pills could easily backfire, harming the alchemist herself. At best, it could sever her meridians and render her a cripple. At worst, it could cost her life. Reaching the ninth grade, this pill had begun to develop a spiritual essence. If it reached an excellent quality, it could even transform its shape, appearing as either an animal or a human figure, catching people off guard and seizing the opportunity to escape. Clara Blake gathered all the rare treasures and resources from her storage ring, everything she had in reserve, to attempt this one time. If she failed, there would be no remaining materials to turn the situation around. Thus, she had no second chance. This was her only opportunity. Within the cauldron, a pale golden flame rose, immediately drawing numerous gazes. It was the first time they had ever seen such a brilliant pale golden flame. Its vibrant hue aside, just observing the fire revealed that it was no ordinary flame. Some knowledgeable individuals recognized it as a rare flame with immense power. Clara Blake placed all the medicinal herbs into the alchemy cauldron. The pale golden flames burned through hundreds of herbs, gradually extracting their essence. The refined essence, enveloped by pink flames, floated mid-air. 1, 2, 3, 100, 200, hundreds of pink flame clusters, each encapsulating a drop of essence, danced gracefully in the air, a truly majestic sight. Outside the courtyard, the crowd of citizens from Central Eastern City watched intently. Alongside them were the grand judges within the yard, their gazes all fixed on Clara Blake. She was undoubtedly the most prominent figure at the gathering. Of course, there were also some who noticed Sophia Lewis, positioned behind and to Clara Blake's left. His flames were a faint blue, exuding a peculiar and eerie aura, a rare type of flame. His alchemy method was strikingly similar to Clara Blake's, as he also placed all the herbs into his cauldron and simultaneously refined hundreds of them. At this moment, Clara Blake had completed the refining phase. Gazing at the thousands of pale golden flames suspended in the air, her expression grew more serious. The next step was the most critical, leaving no room for error. She turned her head to observe the progress of others and noticed that Sophia Lewis had also just finished his refining. His eyes coincidentally met hers. Their gazes locked, but their thoughts couldn't have been more different. In this moment, Sophia Lewis recalls the first time she met Clara Blake. Clara was holding 2-year-old Peter in one arm while skillfully refining pills with the other. Her delicate and beautiful face was filled with worry yet radiated determination. Afterward, Clara and Peter stayed in the Spirit Herb Valley. Occasionally, they would sneak into the sacred grounds of spirit herbs to steal the precious herbs meticulously cultivated by the Spirit Herb clan. To ensure Clara could remain in the valley, Sophia shamelessly pleaded with the elders multiple times and secretly protected her. To save Peter's life, Sophia stole the Spirit Herb clan's treasured artifact, the Chilan fruit, which ultimately led to her being expelled by her father from the clan. This time, in order to help Clara obtain the last 2 spirit herbs needed for the blood transformation pill, Sophia did not hesitate to travel thousands of miles with her to Clearwater City to participate in an alchemist competition she utterly despised. She did all of this simply to ensure she could always see Clara's smile and to hope that the sorrow between Clara's brows would completely disappear. At this moment, Clara Blake was pondering whether she should ask Sophia for help. If they both made it into the top 3, Sophia could also receive a spirit herb from the medicine pavilion. Clara collected her thoughts, waved her sleeve, and cast hundreds of pale golden flames into the cauldron, beginning the refining process. She extended her left hand, and a magic crystal appeared in her palm, a top-tier, 7th grade pale blue crystal, only required when refining 9th grade pills. Clara threw the magic crystal into the pale golden flames. The flames tempered the crystal, something ordinary fire could never accomplish. Only those who possessed rare flames would dare to attempt refining 9th grade pills. The judges' seats erupted in murmurs. Among them were several advanced 9th grade alchemists, individuals considered to be at the pinnacle of existence on the eastern continent. However, they were all old men with silver hair, while Clara Blake and Sophia Lewis were so young that it made them incredibly envious. Good heavens, how many years had it been since their old bones had last seen a 9th grade pill appear at the alchemist assembly? At this moment, the black-clad man standing behind and to the left of Clara Blake also took out a magic crystal, which was also a 7th grade magical beast crystal. Could it be that he, too, intended to refine a 9th grade pill? The black-clad man threw the magic crystal into the fire cauldron. As he opened his mouth, a pale blue flame emerged, enveloping the magic crystal as it floated mid-air. At this instant, the arena seemed to belong solely to Clara Blake, Sophia Lewis, and the black-clad man. Everyone else appeared irrelevant, mere background figures. By the time the magic crystal had been refined, it was already early the next morning, just as the sun began to rise. Clara Blake's 9th grade pill had entered its final forming stage. The pill-forming process was no less challenging than refining the magic crystal. In fact, it was even more intricate and delicate. At this moment, it was truly a test of soul strength. Chapter 52, a phenomenon descends from the heavens. Clara Blake used her extraordinary soul force to envelop each medicinal ingredient, meticulously merging them with the refined magic crystal. This process was exceedingly tedious and consumed a tremendous amount of soul energy. Without such exceptional soul power to sustain it, one would surely fall victim to the backlash of a 9th grade pill. At best, it would cause severe injuries. At worst, it could cost one's life. At this moment, out of the initial 380 participants, more than 100 alchemists had already withdrawn due to running out of materials. Meanwhile, another 100 had completed their pill refinement amidst the roaring sounds from their cauldrons and submitted their results to the panel of judges. Now, the esteemed panel of judges had their eyes glued to Clara Blake, Sophia Lewis, and the mysterious cool guy in black. Hundreds of 7th and 8th grade pills offered up by others were treated as insignificant as mosquito bites on steel, completely ignored for fear of missing any moment of brilliance from the two main contenders. Aside from Clara Blake, Sophia Lewis, and the enigmatic man in black, there were still a few young alchemists, around Clara's age, diligently refining pills. These individuals were all prodigies from various factions, producing impressive intermediate-level 8th grade pills. Despite their accomplishments, no one even raised an eyebrow at their efforts. All attention was fixated on Clara Blake, Sophia Lewis, and the shadowy figure in black. After submitting their pills, the rest quietly retreated, leaving only 3 people on stage. Finally, with a thunderous boom, an earth-shaking sound erupted from the cauldron of the man in black. A snake shot out at lightning speed, its body clad in a brilliant green armor. Some sharp-eyed individuals recognized it as a young form of the green-armored earth dragon. However, to the majority of the crowd, it merely appeared as an ordinary snake, albeit adorned with a few striking green scales. The green-armored snake glanced at the man in black for a split second before darting away at lightning speed. The young man in black shouted, "You can't escape me!" With that, his body moved slightly, and he appeared behind the green-armored snake. Reaching out, he grabbed the snake firmly in his hand. Using his left hand, the man in black pressed on a pressure point beneath the snake's neck. Suddenly, the snake vanished, transforming into a pale green, round pill with an intoxicating fragrance. The rich aroma spread throughout Clearwater City, as if it sought to envelop the entire town. At that moment, another loud explosion erupted. The pale yellow flames in Clara Blake's alchemy furnace extinguished abruptly, and a brilliant green light shot out from within, soaring into the sky. Squinting their eyes, everyone realized it was another snake, a three-headed one. Clara Blake leaped into the air. In an instant, she appeared behind the emerald snake, reached out, and captured it. Pressing on the pressure point beneath its neck, the snake gazed at her with a resentful look before transforming into a bright green pill that rested in her palm. A powerful fragrance filled the air, invading the nostrils of everyone present. "This smells incredible. All the pills made earlier combined can't compare to this one. Truly, the difference between level 8 and level 9 is astounding." Before anyone could recover, another deafening explosion echoed. Sophia Lewis's alchemy furnace burst with a resounding boom, and a dazzling golden light shot into the sky. It resembled a massive golden cat, yet with the majesty of a tiger. Sophia Lewis soared upward, capturing it effortlessly. The golden cat transformed into a pale gold pill, exuding a captivating aroma that mesmerized everyone. A level 9 pill completed, heavenly phenomena arise. The clear blue sky suddenly darkened, as if covered by a black cloth. The audience began to stir, and the seasoned alchemists standing nearby started to comment. "This is the heavenly tribulation of a 9th grade pill. Only by surviving the strike of the 5-colored lightning can one truly become a 9th grade pill king." As the booming voice of the alchemist faded, several 5-colored clouds suddenly appeared in the sky, accompanied by deafening thunder, creating a magnificent spectacle. The 3 5-colored clouds drifted toward the alchemy field. Clara Blake felt the pill in her hand tremble slightly, as if it were trying to escape. Sophia Lewis quickly approached Clara Blake and whispered, "Use your vital energy to form a shield, protect the pill, and neutralize some of the lightning's force, or it will be shattered." Clara Blake knew Sophia Lewis was an expert in this field and immediately followed his instructions, using pale golden energy to form a shield to protect the pills. The trembling pills finally settled down, truly a remarkable item with a hint of sentience. The 3 pills, enveloped in energy, floated mid-air, ready to undergo a cleansing with the brilliant 5-colored lightning. The 5-colored lightning, dazzling like fireworks, struck the 3 pills, causing them to tremble violently as if freezing in fear, even letting out pitiful cries akin to "wah wah," like a baby seeking milk, evoking a sense of compassion. Fortunately, despite the 5-colored lightning being as ferocious as a starving lion, the 3 pills still floated proudly in the air, showing no signs of breaking. The fury of the 5-colored lightning gradually subsided, disappearing into the void, while the dark clouds hastily fled, leaving behind a clear blue sky. 3 divine pills fell from the heavens, obediently landing in the hands of their 3 rightful owners. All 3 simultaneously approached the panel of judges to present their spoils of war, the 9th grade spiritual pills. An elderly gentleman in a gray robe, his hands trembling as if possessed, stared intently at the 3 pills and asked in a quivering voice, "Honored ones, are you selling these pills?" "Not for sale." The 3 responded in unison, declaring that their wealth was already overflowing, so there was no need to sell such treasures. "No way, not happening." The elderly gentleman looked utterly dejected, his eyes filled with longing as he stared at the pills, drooling like a cat eyeing a piece of fat, his heart itching with desire. As for ninth-grade alchemists, even these judges hadn't reached that level yet, so they naturally had no qualifications to comment. Judging by the level of authenticity, Sophia Lewis ranked first, Clara Blake second, and the young man in black reluctantly took third place. The three would now compete for the Dragon Flame Heart, after which they would follow the members of the Alchemy Pavilion to its celestial realm. What is the Dragon's Heart Flame? Peter Blake grabbed Clara Blake's sleeve and asked. Clara Blake pondered for a moment before replying, the Dragon's Heart Flame is the primordial flame of the Divine Dragon. Even after the Divine Dragon kicked the bucket, its primordial flame remains indestructible. If it enters a blessed land, it can absorb the essence of heaven and earth, ensuring the flame's eternal existence. Its energy is extremely pure, and if you possess it, refining pills would be flawless, with top-notch quality. Mother already has a unique flame, there's no need to fight for the Dragon's Heart Flame. Peter thinks that man in black doesn't seem easy to deal with. Peter's small face was filled with worry, he didn't want his mother to always plunge into danger because of him. Julian Quinn sat down, holding Peter in his arms, his voice warm, "Don't worry, Peter. With me here, I won't let your mother face any trouble." Watching the two embrace so tenderly and hearing such sweet words, Clara Blake suddenly felt touched. She, who had always fought alone, finally had an ally, didn't she? The streets of Clearwater City were a stark contrast to the capital of Vermilion Kingdom, like night and day. The area was filled with sparse stalls, sitting quietly, waiting for customers to stop by. After wandering around and finding nothing worthwhile, the three decided to return to the Alchemist Guild. In front of the guild, a young man in a blue outfit still stood there, radiating charm, like a dashing hero, causing many young ladies to glance back in admiration. "Sophia Lewis? Are you waiting for me? Is something the matter?" Clara Blake returned to her residence and saw Sophia Lewis standing at the door, seemingly in a hurry. Seeing Clara Blake, Sophia Lewis's handsome face softened even more, and he gently said to her, "Can we talk in private?" Chapter 53, I'll lend you a hand. But recalling the times Sophia Lewis had helped her, the two of them could be considered friends. Refusing outright would be a bit awkward, so she nodded in agreement. "Peter, go rest with Uncle Anderson first. Mother will be back shortly." With that, without waiting for Peter's reply, Clara Blake turned and walked out of the living area. Sophia Lewis, overjoyed, waved goodbye to Peter and hurriedly ran after her. In a quiet corner of the residential area, there stood an enormous sycamore tree, its age unknown. Its trunk reached skyward, and its lush branches and leaves spread out like a massive mushroom. Clara Blake stood beneath the sycamore tree, the shimmering moonlight reflecting on her face, making her look breathtakingly beautiful, even more so than the sky splitter itself. "You have something to say to me?" Clara Blake got straight to the point like slicing through a banana. Sophia Lewis looked at Clara Blake, his heart pounding like a chaotic drumbeat. Finally, he gritted his teeth and spoke up. "Tomorrow, during the battle for the Dragon Heart Flame, I'll lend you a hand." Clara Blake raised an eyebrow at him, waiting for him to continue. Sophia Lewis added, "On the trip to the Medicine Palace, I'll pick the Dragon Immortal 8 fruits for you." Clara Blake's eyes lit up like car headlights. The Dragon Immortal 8 fruits were exactly the treasure she needed. To concoct the blood elixir, she was missing 2 ingredients, one of which was the dragon immortal 8 fruits, and the other was the ice lotus from the cold region. "You'll give me the dragon immortal 8 fruits?" Clara Blake looked at Sophia Lewis skeptically. Though she knew he had feelings for her, his vague and roundabout behavior made it hard to understand his intentions. "We'll heal Peter together and raise him well, won't we?" He gazed at her passionately, originally intending to quietly wait for her to gradually fall in love with him. But he realized that Peter's biological father could very likely be Julian. The 3 of them were growing closer day by day, and he feared that if he continued to wait, the beauty would eventually belong to someone else. Sophia Lewis spoke in a roundabout way, clearly implying her intentions, yet he remained vague and ambiguous. Clara Blake also pretended to be oblivious, acting as though she didn't understand. But today, with Peter's life at stake, she could no longer avoid the matter. "You know my feelings for you, so why are you doing this?" Clara Blake stared intently at Sophia Lewis. He was clearly forcing her to make a decision. Sophia Lewis's face turned pale as she hurriedly said, "I'm just afraid that you will leave me forever." Clara Blake raised her head, looking at Sophia Lewis's handsome face, her expression full of deep emotion. She sighed and softly said, "You must already know, Peter's biological father is." Sophia Lewis quickly reached out to cover her mouth, saying, "I don't know, nor do I want to know. I swear I will treat Peter as my own son, no less than anyone else." Clara Blake pushed his hand away and shook her head. "No matter what, I only see you as an elder brother, nothing more, nothing less." Sophia Lewis shook his head vigorously. "I don't believe it. At the Spirit Medicine Valley, you healed me, washed my clothes, and cooked for me. Are these things really just for an elder brother? That was merely to repay you for bringing so many spirit medicines for Peter. You misunderstood, Before Clara Blake could finish her sentence, Sophia Lewis interrupted her. "Sorry, I have something to do. Please think carefully about my proposal." He turned and walked away, his face lonely and desolate. Oh, Sophia Lewis, who would have thought there would be a day when love would torment you so much? The competition for the Dragon Heart Flame was held today at the Alchemist Guild's main hall. As soon as she left the residential area, Clara Blake encountered Sophia Lewis, who was already waiting. Upon seeing Clara Blake, Sophia Lewis remained as calm and composed as ever. Clara Blake, too, maintained her faint smile, showing no expression, though her eyes frequently avoided meeting Sophia Lewis's gaze. Entering the Alchemist Guild's main hall, the man in black, who had secured 3rd place in yesterday's finals, had been waiting for a long time. He coldly eyed Clara Blake and Sophia Lewis, as if silently declaring that they would soon face him. Sophia Lewis turned to Clara Blake and said, "Be very careful with this guy later. His fierce appearance suggests a cruel nature and exceptional skills. He is no ordinary expert. If you encounter him, keep your distance and avoid direct conflict. Otherwise, the consequences could be severe." Clara Blake merely responded with a faint and fell silent. The group settled in the living room, and shortly after, 3 elderly men slowly entered. Taking their seats at the main chairs, the 3 elders observed Clara Blake and the other 2, nodding in approval. Good, good, good. Truly, heroes emerge among the young. I've heard that these 3 young alchemists have all successfully refined 9th grade pills. Is that correct? The middle-aged man who had escorted Clara Blake quickly bowed to the gray-robed elder seated in the center. President, that's correct. All three of them have refined ninth-grade pills. The three elders were even more astonished. The gray-robed elder spoke, "We were absent yesterday and missed such a rare sight in 100 years. Would the three of you be willing to let this old man see the ninth-grade pills?" Hearing this, the three said no more and simultaneously presented jade bottles. The expressions of the three elders revealed clear excitement. Among these three, the gray-robed elder in the center was Elder Gu, the president of the Alchemist Guild. The two beside him were vice presidents, surnamed Vu and Ha. All three were alchemists, over 200 years old, having cultivated for over 100 years and yet only reached the mid-tier of the 8th rank. Meanwhile, those young individuals, still in their youth, had already achieved this level. Among the three 9th-rank alchemists, the oldest was just over 30, while the other two were in their 20s, one even being a young woman, which made the older ones feel deeply ashamed. Reflecting on it, they too were once prodigies admired by thousands. Old Master Ko trembled as he received the jade bottle from Clara Blake. Since successfully advancing to the mid-tier of the 8th rank 20 years ago, he had been stuck without progress for 2 decades. In Clearwater City, let alone the 9th rank, even a high-tier 8th rank had never appeared. Having lived to this age, he no longer hoped to advance to the 9th rank but merely wished to witness the birth of a 9th rank pill and fulfill his lifelong aspiration. Now, the day had finally come, and his emotions were naturally overwhelming. As the bottle's stopper was opened, a rich fragrance wafted out, and a streak of vibrant green light shot forth from inside. The Pill King attempted to slip away quietly. Fortunately, Clara Blake had anticipated this. Seeing the flash of light, she quickly grabbed the pill. On the other side, the two vice presidents also opened the jade bottles of Sophia Lewis and the man in black. 2 beams of light shot out, both swiftly caught by their respective owners. A 9th rank pill possesses intelligence, a moment of carelessness and it could escape far away. Previously, this was only a rumor, but now it was proven true. The magical energy within a 9th rank pill originates from spirit beasts. When the pill is newly formed, the spiritual essence within it takes on the shape of that beast, a phenomenon known as the pill's primal form. The 3 presidents returned the pills, and old Master Ko cleared his throat before solemnly saying, "You 3 must already know that the dragon heart flame is no ordinary flame but the primal fire essence of the dragon clan's divine beast. Primal fire essence should never leave its source, but for various reasons, it has been separated. A few days later, if it does not return to its original form, it will dissipate. However, this dragon heart flame fell into a blessed land, so it did not dissipate but instead went into a deep slumber there." Chapter 54, The Beast with a Human Face and Heart. After tens of thousands of years of cultivation, it developed spiritual intelligence, capable of transforming into human or beast form, communicating with humans, with intelligence on par with humans and true divine beasts, making it an extremely wise existence. Therefore, to obtain the dragon heart flame, one must pass a series of its tests and gain its recognition before taking it out of the heart flame gate. The heart flame gate is where, tens of thousands of years ago, a powerful figure accidentally encountered the dragon heart flame. At that time, the dragon heart flame was in a deep cultivation phase, so the powerful figure used a spatial barrier to seal its cultivation place. It wasn't until millennia later that the spatial barrier was discovered by Wu Jizi, the founder of the Alchemist Guild. By then, the dragon heart flame had already developed spiritual intelligence. Wu Jizi attempted to subdue it but was rejected. Hoping to bless the Alchemist Guild, Wujizi resealed the dragon heart flame, waiting for someone destined to take it away. So, no one has ever taken the dragon heart flame away? Clara Blake asked. Elder Gu nodded. The heart flame gate opens once every 100 years, and today is that day. Consider yourselves truly fortunate. Elder Gu flipped his hand, and 3 jade tokens appeared from his spatial ring. He handed one to each of them. These jade tokens can protect your lives. If you encounter danger within the heart flame gate, break the token, and the spatial transmission force within it will transport you outside. Clara Blake looked at the jade token and thought to herself, what kind of powerful figure could create such an extraordinary token? This is the heart flame gate. Are the 3 of you ready? Elder Ko led the 3 to an empty field, barren except for some wild grass. Ready, they answered in unison. Elder Ko waved his hand, chanting an incantation. A pale green light flickered and then disappeared, revealing a spatial door before them. The door was engulfed in roaring flames, the fire seemingly sentient, flickering as if observing the 3 of them. One by one, they stepped into the heart flame gate, and the door behind them gradually vanished. The man in black turned back, coldly glaring at Clara Blake and Sophia Lewis. His face was filled with venomous intent and murderous aura. Clara Blake's voice turned icy. Did you already plan to silence us the moment we stepped through the door? The man in black stared at Clara Blake intently. Absolutely correct. Without another word, he waved his hand, summoning a snake-shaped longsword glowing with a strange green light. Its blade emanated an eerie aura. Sophia Lewis narrowed her eyes slightly. You are from the green-armored Earth Dragon clan? The man in black sneered. Impressive insight. Too bad for you, you've crossed paths with me. Clara Blake was inwardly alarmed. She had heard that magical beasts and divine beasts could transform into human form once they reached a certain level of cultivation, but she never thought it was true. This cold-blooded, ruthless man was actually a rare beast. Sophia Lewis wasted no time. Raising her hands, 2 pale blue flames floated above her palms. If you're from the green-armored Earth Dragon clan, you should know that my blue heart enchanted flame is the perfect counter for creatures like you, beasts with human faces and monstrous hearts. The man in black sneered disdainfully. Just you? The blue heart demon flame may indeed suppress beast clans, but you're far from mastering it. With that, he waved his hand, and an invisible force surged toward Clara Blake and Sophia Lewis. Feeling the overwhelming pressure rushing in, Sophia Lewis acted instinctively. She hurled the blue heart demon flame forward while using all her strength to push Clara Blake away. A massive force enveloped Clara Blake, sweeping her dozens of meters away. The 2 blue heart demon flames emitted a strange glow as they collided with the invisible force, tangling for a few moments before being obliterated. The invisible force, undiminished, continued its assault on Sophia Lewis. She quickly formed seals and summoned 2 more demon flames to resist. Foolish human, daring to oppose me? You truly don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Clara Blake tumbled to the ground. Seeing Sophia Lewis struggling alone in battle, rage flared within her. She leaped up, flipped her hand, and unleashed 2 pale golden flames, shouting, I may not know what kind of strange fire this is, but why don't you have a taste of it? As she finished speaking, the 2 pale golden flames shot from her hands and surged toward the man in black. As they traveled, the flames rapidly expanded, taking on a humanoid form. The fiery figure raised a blazing fist and punched forward. The man in black sneered coldly, just a ghostly flame that evolved into a low-grade strange fire, and you dare act so brazenly before me? Ridiculous. He slowly extended his hand, gently grasping Clara Blake's strange flame. The humanoid fire instantly dissipated. At this moment, Sophia Lewis was struck by a powerful force, her body flying backward like a falling leaf. Clara Blake hurriedly rushed to catch her, and both tumbled to the ground. Sophia Lewis coughed up blood, gripping Clara Blake's hand tightly. Go now. Break the jade token, quickly. Clara Blake shook her head. If we're leaving, we'll leave together. Frantically, she searched for the jade token on Sophia Lewis. The man in black sneered, You think you can escape after coming here? The jade token has already been destroyed by me, no need to search for it. Prepare to die. He raised his hand, which suddenly extended several meters, reaching toward Clara Blake. Using her last ounce of strength, Sophia Lewis pushed Clara Blake away and shielded her. At that moment, a crack appeared in the space, and a white figure rushed in, landing in front of Sophia Lewis. Who else could it be but Julian? His white robes fluttered, black hair flowing, and his eyes, like black gemstones, gleamed with a cold light. He chanted, and an invisible shield materialized, blocking the massive hand. Who are you? How dare you tear through space? Humph, stay out of others' business and leave now, and I might spare your life. The man in black seemed somewhat wary of Julian, cautiously eyeing him. This matter is mine to handle. Just a mere earth dragon with green scales, let alone a divine dragon, I wouldn't fear it. Julian disdainfully glared at the man in black. Since childhood, he had apprenticed under a mysterious master, learning not only martial arts but also the art of taming beasts. An earth dragon with green scales was nothing, even a heavenly dragon would bow to him. As the tension between the two escalated, a clear male voice suddenly echoed, as if descending from the heavens, Who dares disturb my cultivation? Everyone looked up to see a young man walking through the air toward them. He wore an emerald green robe, his long black hair cascading to his waist, his posture upright, and his eyes indifferent. His beauty was indescribable, handsome beyond compare, with a hint of mystique. Chapter 55, A Battle for Supremacy. Someone will fall. The man in black looked at the figure approaching through the air, his face lighting up with uncontrollable excitement. He eagerly asked, Are you Dragon's Heartfire? The man fixed his gaze on the one in black, seemingly displeased with his attitude. I am Dragon's Heartfire. Dragon's Heartfire stared intently at the man in black, his sharp eyes appearing to pierce through the other's soul. He glanced at the man in black and calmly said, Azure-scaled Earth Dragon? The man in black frowned, surprised that Dragon's Heartfire could see through his true form. It seemed this opponent wouldn't be easy to deal with. Dragon's Heartfire shifted his gaze to Sophia Lewis, giving her only a fleeting glance before turning away. When his eyes landed on Clara Blake, a subtle, enigmatic smile appeared on his face. Interesting. Though your soul and body are not one, their combination is remarkably harmonious. Fascinating. Clara Blake was inwardly shocked. Could he even discern something like that? When Dragon's Heartfire turned to Julian Quinn, his expression changed slightly. Upon closer inspection, his face showed more emotion, as though he were somewhat stirred. You are, the heir of the beast's divination heavenly master? Dragon's Heartfire looked at Julian Quinn, its voice trembling slightly. Clara Blake turned her head to look at Julian Quinn. The Beast Forecaster? The legend of the Beast Forecaster? It was said that there was no creature in existence that he couldn't tame. This was the first time she learned the secret about Julian Quinn. However, Julian Quinn's expression remained extremely calm. When he saw Dragon's heart fire, he knew it had a pair of eyes that could see through everything. Dragon's heart fire, submit to me, and I will ensure you reach the supreme realm. The man in black shouted loudly toward Dragon's heart fire. Yet, Dragon's Heartfire's attention seemed to remain fixed on Julian Quinn, utterly ignoring the man in black and his boastful words. It had cultivated in the gate of Heartfire for tens of thousands of years and encountered countless humans who sought to conquer it, many of them supreme experts. However, it had rejected them all. Not for any particular reason, it had simply been waiting for its destined host. When it saw Julian Quinn, it immediately recognized him. This young man before it possessed the legacy of the Beast Forecaster. Its previous host had once been graced by the Beast Forecaster. Regardless of how many generations had passed, this human before it shared a certain bond of fate. The man in black, seeing that Dragon's Heartfire paid him no attention, not even sparing him a glance, was filled with rage. He was the dignified patriarch of the Azure Armored Earth Dragon clan, a being of noble bloodline and esteemed status. How could he endure such disregard and contempt? Dragon's Heartfire, I ask you once more, are you willing to submit to me? The man in black roared at Dragon's Heartfire. Dragon's Heartfire turned around, looked at the man in black, frowned, and said irritably, submit? Then let me see what you're capable of. With that, Dragon's Heartfire waved his aquamarine robe toward the man in black, sending a powerful surge of energy his way. The man in black shifted his body slightly, easily dodging the strong surge of energy. The man in black let out a cold snort, spitting out a burst of flames toward Dragon's Heartfire. The pale blue fire rapidly expanded in the air, fiercely charging at Dragon's Heartfire. Let my azure armor flame compete with your Dragon's Heartfire. The man in black roared, his figure soaring into the sky. Streams of pale blue light emanated from his body, and in no time, his dark silhouette vanished, transforming into a massive azure armored earth dragon. The azure armored earth dragon shook its enormous head, spewing waves of blue flames toward Dragon's Heartfire. Dragon's Heartfire growled furiously, declaring, "You insignificant azure armored worm, how dare you roar before me? Today, I shall make you taste the might of my Heartfire." With a swift turn, Dragon's Heartfire's greenish figure disappeared as well, morphing into a white flame. The white flame collided fiercely with the blue fire, instantly igniting a dazzling explosion. Flames shot into the sky as massive waves of energy, visible to the naked eye, surged downward in all directions. Clara Blake immediately cast an energy shield to protect herself and Sophia Lewis within its bounds. Julian Quinn, narrowing his eyes at the enormous energy waves, quickly gestured to form a barrier of elemental energy, enveloping Clara Blake and Sophia Lewis. The energy waves crashed against the invisible barrier Julian Quinn had erected, distorting it under immense pressure. Only through Julian's utmost effort did the barrier gradually rebound and force the overwhelming pressure back. Clara Blake was inwardly startled. This single strike was truly earth-shattering. Without Julian Quinn's intervention, she and Sophia Lewis would have undoubtedly been pulverized into dust by the colossal energy waves. After several clashes, the disparity in strength between the blue flame and the white flame gradually became evident. The blue flame aggressively suppressed the white flame, leaving it no chance to catch its breath or turn the tide. The white flame fiercely counterattacked the blue flame, unwilling to relent. Having cultivated here for tens of thousands of years, how could it accept being subdued by some cunning scoundrel before it could even unite with its destined master? It was unyielding. Sensing the danger, Julian Quinn softly said to Clara Blake, "Be careful, I'll go lend the Heartfire Dragon a hand." Clara Blake nodded, offering him a reassuring smile. Feeling at ease, Julian Quinn ascended, his figure darting out of the invisible barrier of elemental energy, soaring into the sky. Earth Dragon Armor, today you'll taste the methods of the Beast Master Celestial Sage. With that, he raised his right hand high, his fingers swiftly sketching in the air. In an instant, a strange diagram materialized. Upon seeing the diagram, the Earth Dragon Armor's expression drastically changed, its mind unsettled, while the Heartfire Dragon let out a sigh of relief, and the suppressed white flame began to recover. Under Julian Quinn's guidance, the mark transformed into a heavenly net of radiant nine-colored light, encircling the Earth Dragon Armor. Clara Blake Phia Dui Quan Chien, Gang Dao Nin Julian Quinn, Nuoi Dan Ong Tua Nu Thien Dan Jiang Tran, De Moi La Julian Quinn Chan Chin. Earth Dragon Bitch Armor was horrified and quickly retreated, his face full of disbelief. The young man before him could actually unleash the legendary exclusive technique of the Beast Tamer Celestial Master, Heavenly Net of 10,000 Beasts. Once this net was cast, no beast could escape. Earth Dragon Bitch Armor pushed aside the Heartfire Dragon, channeling all his strength to pierce the spatial barrier of the Heartfire sect. He managed to create a massive crack in the barrier. At this moment, the heavenly net of 10,000 beasts closed in. Despite his incredible speed, he was caught by the net on one leg and was instantly crushed into powder by the nine-colored radiance. Ignoring the pain in his body, Earth Dragon Bitch Armor transformed into a beam of light and vanished through the spatial crack. Julian Quinn slowly descended, landing in front of Clara Blake. Seeing that she was unharmed, he felt a sense of relief. The Heartfire Dragon transformed back into a man in a green robe, looking at Julian Quinn with deep gratitude. If it weren't for Julian Quinn today, he might have become Earth Dragon Bitch Armor's puppet, a tool for his wicked deeds in the future. You are fated with me. I am willing to follow you and help you reach new heights, the Heartfire Dragon said to Julian Quinn. Julian Quinn didn't seem very interested, he wasn't an alchemist and didn't have much passion for flames. Pointing to Clara Blake, he said, "She's more interested in you. Why don't you follow her instead?" The flame spirit, Thomas Long, felt a bit awkward. Even though Clara Blake was indeed impressive, she wasn't exactly its type. Chapter 56, Forced Love? Who would do that? Clara Blake smiled brightly, things are only enjoyable when done willingly. Why force something and make it exhausting? Since we're destined to meet, just let it roam free. When I refine the blood essence pill, you can lend me a hand, how about that? Julian Quinn nodded enthusiastically, clearly pleased with Clara Blake's enticing proposal. The tiny flame spirit, about the size of a baby's fist and as pure white as a cotton ball, darted straight into Julian Quinn's forehead. It merged with his energy channels, becoming one with him, almost like something out of a sci-fi movie. Julian Quinn extended his right hand, and with just a thought, a blazing white flame erupted in his palm. Though it appeared calm and serene, its heat was nothing to scoff at, seemingly capable of burning the entire world to ashes. Sophia Lewis had already recovered a fair amount by now and was given a revitalizing pill by Clara Blake. Gritting her teeth to endure the twisting pain in her internal organs, she stood up and said to Julian Quinn, "The heart-fire flame that everyone dreams of, you obtained it as easily as turning your hand. Truly, you're blessed." Julian Quinn merely smirked slightly, turned to look at Clara Blake, and gently said, "Let's go, Peter is waiting." With that, he took Clara Blake's hand and slowly walked toward the cracked spatial wall. Sophia Lewis stood rooted in place, watching him speak to her with words as gentle as flowing water, his gestures as tender as the spring breeze, so naturally as if he'd done it 1,000 times before. At that moment, she felt utterly unnecessary. All these years, she had never truly approached her, and she had never treated him as she did Julian. As she turned away, Sophia Lewis's handsome face bore only a bitter smile. Fate as fragile as paper, feelings as deep as the ocean. She turned her back, and my entire life plunged into darkness. The greatest pain in life is not birth, aging, sickness, or death, but the fleeting journey of life filled with eternal loneliness. The moment the three left the Heartfire Gate, the guild elders rushed over in a panic. Seeing the cracked spatial wall, they were all wide-eyed and slack-jawed, as if saying, "What kind of terrifying destructive power is this?" After leaving the main guild hall, the three of them returned together to the living quarters. Peter, Charles Anderson, Henry Owen, and the others had been waiting anxiously, and when they saw them return safely, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Peter rushed into Clara Blake's arms, crying uncontrollably. "Mother, please don't leave Peter again, okay?" Peter was so scared of never seeing you again. Clara Blake, with tears welling in her eyes, held her son tightly, gently patting his back, and softly said, "I will never leave Peter again." If Julian Quinn hadn't arrived in time today, she feared she might never have the chance to see Peter again. Thinking of this, she glanced at Julian Quinn with gratitude in her eyes. Julian Quinn, still keeping his usual calm demeanor, noticed Clara Blake's grateful gaze. Unable to resist, he made a funny face at her, causing both mother and son to burst into laughter. The somber atmosphere dissipated instantly. The envoy from the medicine pavilion quickly arrived at the living quarters to escort Clara Blake and Sophia Lewis to the medicine pavilion. They also conveyed the pavilion master's invitation, hoping the two would consider joining the medicine pavilion and becoming part of the elite alchemist team. Both politely declined the kind offer, only wishing to promptly receive the rewards the medicine pavilion had promised. The moonlight was like flowing water as Sophia Lewis carried a sliver of hope and stood before Clara Blake's residence. "Have you considered my proposal?" Under the moonlight, Clara Blake's beauty was breathtaking. She remained the same as always, her demeanor toward him still cold and indifferent, unchanged. "Sophia, for the sake of our bond, you shouldn't act this way. You know my temperament well." Clara Blake felt slightly uneasy, furrowing her brows. She hadn't expected Sophia Lewis to press her like this. "Bond?" Sophia Lewis let out a bitter laugh. How could she know what he had lost, what he had endured for her? For this unrequited love, he had even left his family behind. For this unrequited love, he had risked his life. Yet in her eyes, it was nothing more than a shallow connection, as faint as water. He once asked her what she thought the greatest happiness was. She replied, in the midst of the bustling world, to find a secluded valley, build a small wooden house, pave a stone path, and live a simple life with the one I love, hearing the sound of bells and chants morning and evening. For her, he bought a valley, built a small house, paved the path with green stones, and waited to live with her in peace and tranquility for a lifetime. It turned out, this was merely his dream. I will still keep my original promise, to protect you and Peter for all my life. On this journey to the Medicine Palace, I will bring back the dragon immortal 8 fruits for you. Forget the request I once made before. He gazed deeply into her face, engraving her features into his very soul. He knew, in this lifetime, he could never love anyone else. Watching his tall, slender figure retreat, casting a long shadow behind him, surrounded by an intense, unshakable loneliness, she couldn't help but sigh, one day, he will smile at my refusal. He will thank me for rejecting him because, in the end, I am not the one destined for him. She turned back to her room. The moment the door closed, from a quiet, shadowy corner, a dark figure slowly emerged. His thin lips pressed into a straight line, and in the darkness, his expression was unreadable. He stood silently, seemingly lost in thought. "Charles, what are you doing here?" Henry Owen carried 2 oil paper packages closer and saw Charles Anderson standing pensively under the tree's shade. Unable to hold back, he asked. Charles Anderson slowly turned around and casually replied, "It's nothing, let's go back. I bought some grilled meat, let's have a few drinks." Henry Owen looked troubled. He was about to return home, and the thought of facing Helen Anderson filled him with frustration. Both were domineering, yet Helen Anderson's attitude annoyed him to no end, while Clara Blake's brashness oddly suited his taste. After resting for a night, everyone, along with the envoy from the Medicine Pavilion, headed to its main headquarters at Mount Wuji. They were led to a luxurious residential area, with houses closely packed and gardens blooming with flowers. Apart from Clara Blake and Sophia Lewis, the others were confined to the residential area and not permitted to venture deeper into Mount Wuji. This arrangement left everyone extremely dissatisfied. Why couldn't they all enter together? Their protests were ultimately futile. Wanting to quickly obtain the spiritual medicine, Clara Blake coaxed Peter and promptly proceeded with the envoy into Mount Wuji. Arriving at a green stone stele, the envoy took out a jade pendant and murmured an incantation. A beam of light shot out from the jade pendant, tearing through the void before them, gradually forming into a door. The envoy leaned forward and raised his hand. "Please, both of you." Clara Blake and Sophia Lewis stepped in one after another, immediately captivated by the scene before them. It felt as though they had wandered into a sea of flowers, with vibrant colors everywhere and a rich, intoxicating fragrance filling the air, as if the entire world had turned into a floral paradise. Guided by the envoy, the 3 ascended, flying over the sea of flowers. At the end of it, a magnificent and majestic palace stood tall before them. "Both of you, this is the main hall of the Medicine Palace. The palace master is waiting for you. Please, go ahead." The envoy maintained a constant smile, his face full of pride. Clara Blake's emotions were incredibly stirred. With the upcoming acquisition of the Dragon Immortal 8 fruits and the Ice Lotus of the Cold Realm, Peter's illness would be cured, and he would no longer have to endure such agony. The main hall was paved entirely with warm jade, its beams intricately carved and gilded, with hundreds of mythical creatures swirling around the columns, truly luxurious, majestic, and elegant. Atop a 10-step jade staircase, on a grand chair lacquered in red and gilded with gold, covered with thick white fox fur, sat a young woman of stunning beauty, her features like a painting, exuding an ethereal air, as if she were a celestial maiden descended from the clouds. She wore a shimmering 5-colored dress that further accentuated her divine presence. Chapter 57. Forbidden Spirit Sanctuary. Clara Blake smiled and replied, "You flatter me, Temple Master. I thought the Temple Master would be an old sage with white hair and beard, yet here you are, a beauty that could bring down kingdoms. Truly admirable." The woman stood up gracefully, stepped down, and smiled at Clara Blake. "We're about the same age, just call me by my name. I'm Lily, 21 this year. And you?" Clara Blake felt even more favorable toward this elegant woman and responded with a smile, "I'm Clara Blake, 19. And this is Sophia Lewis, heir to the spirit medicine family, 23 years young, still single and unburdened." Clara Blake winked at Lily with a hint of mischief. However, Lily only glanced at Sophia Lewis briefly, her expression calm, clearly indicating that Sophia Lewis wasn't to her taste. Clara Blake, with such a bold personality, must have many admirers, no? Lily said, glancing at Sophia Lewis. Though this young man maintained a cold demeanor, his gaze toward Clara Blake was filled with unmistakable adoration. Unfortunately, while Clara had feelings, the gentleman remained indifferent. Clara Blake chuckled lightly. "Admirers? Not really. I may not be married yet, but I already have a little treasure of my own." Lily nodded, choosing not to delve further into the topic. She raised her hand, revealing 2 jade tokens resting on her fair palm. Handing the tokens to Clara Blake and Sophia Lewis, she said, "These are void limit tokens, granting access to the Forbidden Spirit Sanctuary of our Medicine Palace. I'll have someone escort you to Medicine Mountain. Each of you may pick one plant only, do not be greedy, or you won't be able to take even one. That's the rule." Clara Blake nodded in agreement. Heavenly treasures are never easy to come by. A superior grade spirit herb takes countless years to mature, while a rare, top-grade herb requires at least a century to grow fully. 100 years to bloom, another 100 to bear fruit. A top-grade spirit herb needs several centuries to be harvestable. The Medicine Palace's willingness to offer such treasures to recruit disciples was indeed generous. However, both Clara Blake and Sophia Lewis had no intention of staying at the Medicine Palace. Along the way, a servant led them through a winding path paved with multicolored cobblestones, twisting and turning like a maze. At last, at the end of the narrow path, a jade-green stone stele came into view, engraved with 3 words, "Forbidden Spirit Sanctuary." The guide stopped and addressed Clara Blake and Sophia Lewis, "Ladies, this is as far as I can take you. Once you enter, another attendant will guide you further." 2 people stepped past the jade-colored stone tablet, and darkness immediately enveloped their surroundings. As the 2 remained on high alert, a tall woman holding a palace lantern slowly approached. "Please follow me. Beyond this cave lies the Forbidden Spirit Sanctuary," she said. The woman had a delicate appearance and a gentle voice, which instantly evoked goodwill and dispelled any negative thoughts. Clara Blake and Sophia Lewis obediently followed her. The palace lantern illuminated only about 10 feet ahead, while everything beyond remained pitch black, as if they were underground. Clara Blake asked the woman, "Are you the one in charge of the Forbidden Spirit Sanctuary?" The woman nodded slightly. "We are only responsible for observing the growth of all spiritual herbs within the Forbidden Spirit Sanctuary, not managing it." Clara Blake was secretly delighted and inquired further, "In that case, you must know what spiritual herbs are in the Forbidden Spirit Sanctuary and where I should go to pick them." The woman smiled and replied, "For ordinary spiritual herbs, yes, but for top-tier ones, it's hard to say." "Oh? Why is it hard to say? Clara Blake asked eagerly. The woman explained, the Forbidden Spirit Sanctuary is not like an ordinary herb garden. According to legend, it was originally a medicinal field of the Celestial Medicine Palace. For various reasons, it fell to the mortal world. The sanctuary is infused with celestial energy, so the spiritual herbs growing here, if over 500 years old, develop intelligence. They can move their habitats on their own, making them very hard to find. Hearing this, Clara Blake was not discouraged. The rarer and more valuable an item, the harder it was to obtain. If she could acquire spiritual herbs imbued with celestial energy, the benefits for Peter would be immeasurable. Ahead is the cave entrance. Please activate your vital energy barriers to prevent the cold air from invading, the woman instructed. The woman halted and gave instructions to the two individuals. Cold energy invading? Clara Blake and Sophia Lewis both appeared puzzled. The woman smiled and explained, the Forbidden Spirit Sanctuary is akin to the concept of yin and yang, divided into two regions. Yin represents extreme cold, where rare medicinal herbs thrive in freezing conditions. Yang represents extreme heat, where the ground is blazing hot, fostering some loving herbs. This cave entrance lies at the extreme yin position, hence it's exceptionally frigid. Both individuals activated their energy barriers and followed the woman out of the cave. The darkness immediately dissipated, revealing a vast expanse of pure white snow. The three stood at the entrance of a suspension bridge hanging over a cliff. The woman gestured slightly and said, "Please, proceed." Crossing this bridge leads to the extreme yin area, while the other end leads to the extreme yang. I wish you both success in finding the fated medicinal herbs. With a nod to the two, the woman turned and leisurely departed. The two crossed the snow-covered suspension bridge and descended into the icy region of extreme yin. Looking around, the area seemed no different from ordinary mountainous regions elsewhere, with undulating hills and clusters of trees scattered about. Clara Blake turned to Sophia Lewis and said, "The dragon immortal ate fruit is of yang nature, you should head to the extreme yang region." Sophia Lewis's cold demeanor briefly showed a hint of concern. He felt uneasy leaving Clara Blake alone here. In this forbidden spirit sanctuary, who knows if there might be ferocious spirit beasts like the azure-scaled earth dragon. However, he also understood her stubborn nature and ultimately decided to leave, hoping to quickly find the dragon immortal ate fruit and return to assist her. As Sophia Lewis departed, Clara Blake gazed at the snow-covered landscape, recalling the image of the Frost Domain ice lotus. She had never seen this supreme medicinal treasure with her own eyes, only its hand-drawn depiction in an ancient herbal manuscript from her previous life. The Arctic ice lotus depicted in the drawing did not resemble a lotus flower but was instead a peculiar plant with an unusual form. It had 3 leaves and 3 petals, each in 3 different colors, and a stem in a single distinct color, totaling 7 colors altogether, giving it a very bizarre appearance. She recalled the explanation from the book, which mentioned that although the Arctic ice lotus grew in icy regions, it would only bloom when a stream of warm water flowed through. In other words, the Arctic ice lotus might be hiding near the extreme yang region. With this thought, she quickly dashed toward the extreme yang area. Along the way, there were countless exotic flowers and rare herbs, many of which she had only read about in ancient medicinal texts, and even some supreme spiritual medicines whose names she didn't know. She couldn't help but silently admire how extraordinary the Forbidden Spirit Sanctuary truly was. It was strange, though, that such a place hadn't been targeted by greedy individuals. The snow ahead gradually became sparser. Clara Blake descended. Though the air was still cold, it was significantly warmer than before. Perhaps the Arctic ice lotus was hiding here. Since it favored warmth, if she lit a fire, would the Arctic ice lotus, having gained sentience, instinctively approach and reveal itself? She gathered some dry wood nearby and used her unique flame to ignite it. Though the dry wood had been perpetually covered in snow and ice, making it damp, it couldn't withstand the power of her special flame. Thanks to Clara Blake's deliberate manipulation of the wind, the fire quickly roared up to her height. The blazing fire began to melt the already sparse surrounding snow and ice. Clara Blake then took out a piece of beast meat and roasted it over the fire. In just a short while, the once serene and icy world was suddenly filled with the crackling of flames and the mouth-watering aroma of roasted meat. Chapter 58. The peculiar young man. She cautiously observed her surroundings, not missing even the slightest sound, yet she still couldn't find the strange seven-colored magical herb. The beast meat had started to sizzle, its fat rendering down, as Clara Blake sprinkled various spices over it. The rich aroma wafted through the air, making it impossible not to gulp hungrily. Just as the meat was about to be fully cooked, a young boy wearing a thin, light green robe suddenly appeared beside the fire, staring intently at the roasting meat with drool dripping from his mouth. "Who are you?" Clara Blake asked warily. The woman who brought her here hadn't mentioned anyone else. The boy looked at Clara Blake, pointed at the roasting meat, then at his own mouth, swallowing hard. Clara raised an eyebrow. "You want to eat?" The boy nodded eagerly, his face lighting up with excitement. Seeing that he only used gestures without speaking, Clara asked, "Can't you talk?" The boy nodded again, his gaze glued to the sizzling meat. Clara scrutinized the boy suspiciously. Outwardly, he looked no different from an ordinary person, but she noticed his pale yellow eyes, light brown hair, and skin so white it appeared almost bluish. His fingernails were an unusual pale green, and his lips were a striking, unnatural red. The wind blew, lifting his thin green robe slightly, revealing bare legs underneath. The skin of his legs was equally peculiar, a pale gray tinged with purple. In such a cold place, he wore only a thin long robe, no pants, no shoes. Wasn't that extremely strange? Clara suddenly asked, "If you want to eat, can you tell me where the Frost Realm Ice Lotus is?" The boy's expression shifted, his pale yellow eyes filled with panic. He hesitated, as though he wanted to leave, but couldn't bear to part with the fragrant meat. Clara studied him, as if piecing something together, a faint smile curling her lips. The Frost Realm Ice Lotus, 3 leaves with 3 colors, 3 petals with 3 colors, 1 stem with 1 color, the whole plant with 7 colors, 7 colors. She looked at the boy, her gaze filled with hidden meaning. Indeed bizarre, even plants and herbs can eat until they're intoxicated? Clara Blake, of course, wouldn't indulge such a peculiar habit. She didn't want him ruining the medicinal properties of the spiritual herbs just for the sake of gluttony. That would be a disaster. Although she had already known that in this land of celestial spirits, spiritual herbs could develop intelligence after growing for many years, she hadn't expected them to transform into human form. The boy unconsciously licked his lips, his pale golden eyes darting around a few times before finally nodding at Clara Blake, signaling his agreement to her proposal. As long as she gave him meat, he would lead her to the cold domain Ice Lotus. However, Clara Blake didn't trust him at all. What if he ate and then ran off? In this vast wilderness, where would she go to find him? Clara Blake blinked, flipped her hand, and a white porcelain bottle appeared. She handed it to the boy. "How can you eat meat without wine?" "Try it, it smells wonderful." The boy sniffed, his gaze fixed on the wine bottle. The rich aroma wafting from it made his Adam's apple bob repeatedly. He reached out with both hands to take the bottle, opened the lid, and lowered his head to inhale deeply. His pale golden eyes gradually closed, his head tilted slightly back, and his face showed utter enjoyment. Without hesitation, the boy tilted his head back and took a large gulp. The wine slid down his throat, leaving a lingering fragrance on his tongue. The exquisite taste was beyond anything he had ever imagined. One sip led to another, and before long, the entire bottle was drained. The bottle fell to the ground as his body began to sway. His expression turned uncontrollable as he stared at Clara Blake with a silly grin, drooling at the corners of his mouth. He looked utterly ridiculous, just like a drunkard. The young boy staggered toward Clara Blake, pointing at the wine jar on the ground, then at his mouth, signaling that he wanted to drink more. Clara Blake chuckled softly, taking out several more jars of fine wine until the boy drank himself unconscious, collapsing beside the campfire. Clara Blake didn't touch him, merely observing quietly. In just a moment, the boy began to transform, shifting from human form into a peculiar seven-colored, three-leafed, three-petaled magical herb, exactly as Clara Blake had seen in an ancient medicinal book from her past life. Who would have thought that the noble-sounding, Han ice lotus would manifest in such an odd way? Using a special alchemical technique, Clara Blake sealed the Han ice lotus into a jade purity bottle, locking it with her soul force. Unless someone possessed stronger soul force than hers, it would be impossible to open. Meanwhile, in the Huduong region, Sophia Lewis had also successfully found the long immortal 8 fruit. After harvesting it, he hurried to reunite with Clara Blake. Seeing that she was safe and sound, he finally let out a sigh of relief. Just as the two were preparing to leave the Forbidden Spirit Sanctuary, a slender figure suddenly descended from the sky, landing right in front of them. It was Lily, the master of the Medicine Palace. Behind Lily, dozens of figures quickly appeared, armed with long swords and wearing unfriendly expressions. Clara Blake's eyes flickered, and she silently became vigilant. "Lily?" she questioned. Lily maintained a gentle smile. "You two are indeed extraordinary. Since the founder of the Medicine Palace passed away, no one has ever found traces of a true top-tier medicinal herb. Yet, in just one day, the two of you managed to harvest 2 of the Medicine Palace's peak-grade herbs." Clara Blake's expression shifted, her tone turning icy. "What do you mean by that?" Looking at Clara Blake, Lily calmly replied, "The long immortal 8 fruit can be overlooked, but the Han ice lotus, you must leave it behind. You may choose another herb instead." Clara Blake's pupils contracted as she silently gathered her inner energy in both hands, her voice cold as she said, "As the dignified leader of the Medicine Palace, you go back on your word? What if I refuse to comply?" She could sense that Lily, standing before her, possessed unfathomable strength, undoubtedly greater than her own. Yet for Peter's sake, she would never hand over the ice lotus of the cold abyss. Doing so would be tantamount to handing over Peter's life, something she would rather die than allow. Lily's faint smile lingered, but to Clara Blake, it was utterly detestable. Earlier, she had found Lily approachable, devoid of any commanding aura, kind and virtuous. How blind she had been. They say a true hero knows when to yield. I believe Miss Blake wouldn't make things difficult for herself. A trace of coldness appeared on Lily's flawless face, a stark contrast to her earlier demeanor. As soon as Lily finished speaking, dozens of figures moved swiftly behind her, surrounding Clara Blake and Sophia Lewis. "Lily, as the leader of the Medicine Palace, aren't you afraid I'll ruin its reputation once I leave?" Clara Blake gritted her teeth, wishing she could lunge forward and bite her. Lily replied indifferently, "The reputation of the Medicine Palace is not something a mere pharmacist like you can tarnish. However, accusing the Medicine Palace of slander is a crime you should think carefully about. Can you bear the consequences?" This was blatant intimidation, and Clara Blake despised being threatened more than anything. "The ice lotus of the cold abyss, I must have it," she growled through clenched teeth, hatred for Lily burning deep within her. Chapter 59, The Useless One, Deserving Death. "In that case, don't blame me for being ruthless." With a graceful wave of her pale hand, Lily commanded the dozens of figures surrounding Clara Blake and Sophia Lewis to attack. The attackers, all women with elegant figures, were martial arts experts, the weakest among them at the 8th rank, a display of extraordinary prowess. Sophia Lewis found herself trapped by two Royal Realm experts, unable to escape. Meanwhile, Clara Blake, after defeating two 8th rank martial artists, became entangled with two 9th rank experts. To maintain her strength, she recklessly swallowed 3 vitality pills in succession. These pills would allow her to sustain her energy for an hour, but beyond that, she would gradually weaken. The 3 9th-grade fighters gradually weakened under Clara Blake's fierce attack, all falling to the ground injured. Before Clara Blake could even catch her breath, 2 King Realm experts surrounded her. Though the gap between the 9th grade and King Realm was just a single step, the difference in power was like heaven and earth. Despite Clara Blake consuming 3 vitality restoration pills, she couldn't withstand even a single move from the King Realm experts. As Clara Blake's body flew like scattered snowflakes, Sophia Lewis unleashed a powerful palm strike, temporarily breaking free and rushing to catch Clara Blake before she hit the ground. Clara Blake collapsed into Sophia Lewis's arms, coughing up blood. Gripping his arm tightly, she gasped out broken words, "Don't let her take the ice lotus, it's Peter's life." Fresh blood continuously spilled from the corners of her mouth. Sophia Lewis's heart burned with urgency as he quickly sealed her 8 meridians and fed her a healing elixir. Softly, he vowed, "I will never let her take the frozen region ice lotus. Never." Sophia Lewis's eyes turned bloodshot. He had never seen Clara Blake in such a state, her face pale as if drained of all blood. Seeing her hand, once gripping his arm, now fall limp, fury erupted within him like a raging inferno. Gently laying Clara Blake on the ground, he retrieved a berserk spirit pill from his spatial ring. It was a secret and potent elixir from his Lin medicine clan, capable of drastically enhancing spiritual power for a short period, even enabling one to challenge higher-level experts. However, the side effects were severe. After its use, the user would lose all martial arts abilities for 7 days, leaving them vulnerable to anyone. His aqua-green robe fluttered despite the absence of wind, and his black hair flowed wildly. Spiritual energy surged between his palms as he silently hurled a condensed mass of energy toward the 2 King Realm experts who had gravely injured Clara Blake. The 2 King Realm experts were caught off guard. Just moments ago, they had been evenly matched with their peer, yet now his power had surged to such an overwhelming level. They attempted to evade, but it was too late. The powerful energy mass struck both of their chests, killing them instantly on the spot. The 2 remaining Wankan members were utterly shocked. They never expected that in just a moment, the young man's strength would skyrocket, allowing him to kill 2 Hong Kong members with a single move. It was truly terrifying. However, the palace master had ordered that retreat was not an option, otherwise, they would still face death. The 2 exchanged glances, gritted their teeth, and charged forward, unleashing their ultimate techniques as they lunged straight at Sophia Lewis. Sophia Lewis's eyes turned blood red. Forming seals with her hands, she met the full-force attack of the 2 head-on. With just 1 palm strike, she shattered all their bones. Though they were still alive, they were reduced to cripples, better off dead than living. Lily's expression remained indifferent, as if the lives lost were of no concern to her. "Useless fools, you deserve to die," she remarked coldly. With a slight wave of her hand, the 2 crippled individuals lost their lives instantly under her sharp palm wind. Turning to Sophia Lewis, Lily spoke in a calm tone, "The explosive spirit pill of the spirit medicine clan truly lives up to its reputation. You should have died, but I have a proposal. If you're willing to hand over the formula for the explosive spirit pill, I might consider sparing your life." Sophia Lewis, aware that her time was running out, didn't waste words with Lily. She charged forward, striking out with a powerful palm attack. Lily's slender figure swiftly retreated, narrowly evading Sophia Lewis's sharp blow. Her exquisite face broke into a faint smile as she raised her voice, "Though I cannot defeat you, you cannot defeat me either. But in just half a moment, you'll become nothing more than an ant under my feet, left for me to trample on." Sophia Lewis did not respond, relentlessly launching fierce and deadly attacks, each one perilous and lethal, but all were skillfully evaded by Lily. The strength in her hands began to wane, making her even more anxious. If she couldn't kill Lily at this moment, both she and Clara Blake would find it hard to escape death. Lily's smile grew brighter. She could clearly sense that the effects of the rampage spirit pill Sophia Lewis had taken had reached their limit, and at any moment, she could collapse. Surrendering now is still an option. Just hand over the formula for the rampage spirit pill, and I promise to spare your life. Lily spoke, her face full of smugness. Beads of sweat, as large as peas, rolled down Sophia Lewis's forehead. His body grew increasingly hollow, and he knew he couldn't hold on any longer. Glaring fiercely at Lily, he gritted his teeth and spat out, "Don't even think about it, don't you dare." Lily's stunning face maintained a faint smile as her jade-like hand gently lifted. From her palm emanated a colorless energy, and her cherry-red lips parted slightly. "If that's the case, then let the woman you love taste the power of the demon-slaying palm first. Such a pity, a beauty like her, about to meet such a tragic fate." Lily stared into Sophia Lewis's eyes, not missing the growing anxiety within them. The corners of her lips couldn't help but curl into a triumphant smile. In this world, nothing stirred the human heart more than love, and nothing could make one lose reason and principles quite like it. Lily raised her hand again, and the colorless energy formed into a peculiar seal. She appeared as though she was about to hurl the seal toward Clara Blake. Sophia Lewis, in desperation, staggered in front of Clara Blake, shielding her with his frail and weakened body. Though on the verge of collapse, he clenched his teeth and stood firm, glaring at Lily with hatred. He growled, "I'll give you the formula for the explosive spirit pill, but you must agree to one condition." Lily glanced at the unconscious Clara Blake and smiled faintly. "A condition? Let her leave the medicine pavilion safely. As long as she gets out unharmed, I'll give you the formula immediately." Sophia Lewis glared at Lily. Lily's smile remained unchanged, but her voice turned colder. Do you think you're in a position to negotiate terms with me now? You're not the only one who knows the formula for the explosive spirit pill. If I want, the elders of the spirit medicine clan would surely be delighted to visit the medicine pavilion. Sophia Lewis was momentarily stunned. She was right. With the reputation of the medicine pavilion, just a single word would bring the elders of the spirit medicine clan rushing over. At that point, not only the explosive spirit pill but all the secret medicines of the spirit medicine clan would undoubtedly fall into Lily's hands. Ruthless, this woman was truly ruthless. Lily smiled and said, as long as you hand over the formula for the explosive spirit pill and convince her to stay in the medicine pavilion, both of your lives will be spared. Otherwise. Sophia Lewis clenched her fists tightly, her slender fingers curling until they turned pale, her nails digging deep into her skin. Her face was filled with hatred. Finally, she turned to look at Clara Blake. Her serene and beautiful face was as pale as snow, dried blood at the corner of her lips. Though unconscious, her delicate brows were tightly furrowed, evidence of the intense pain she was enduring. Chapter 60. She's lying through her teeth. He no longer hesitated and turned to look at Lily. I agree with you. Lily's face lit up with smug satisfaction as her slender fingers lightly clenched. The floating hand seal in the air dissipated, and with a flip of her palm, a small white porcelain bottle appeared. She tossed it into the snow in front of Sophia Lewis and casually said, inside are 2 pills. You and your lover will each take one immediately. Sophia Lewis frowned, bent down to pick up the porcelain bottle, and opened the lid. A strong medicinal scent wafted out, making him glare angrily at Lily. Are you planning to use the heart-binding pill to control us? Lily shrugged nonchalantly and replied, do you really think I would trust you to stay here willingly? As an alchemist, Sophia Lewis naturally understood the terrifying effects of the heart-binding pill. Without taking the antidote on time, anyone who consumed it would endure excruciating pain, as if thousands of insects were gnawing at their heart and liver, leaving them wishing for death. Sophia Lewis's eyes widened as he roared, I can stay at the medicine palace, and I can take the heart-binding pill, but she can't. You must let her go. Lily's faint smile grew even brighter. Such a devoted love, how touching. Unfortunately, I cannot grant your wish. Both you and she must remain here, bound to the medicine palace for all eternity, never to leave, serving as its slaves. At that moment, Clara Blake, gravely injured and semi-conscious, regained some awareness. Hearing Lily's shrill voice, anger surged within her, causing her to spit out a mouthful of blood. She staggered to her feet and shouted at Lily, dream on. You think Clara Blake would ever become a slave? You're not worthy. Lily's stunning eyes flashed with a cold gleam. You refuse the path to heaven and insist on barging into hell. Very well, I shall grant your wish. Raising her hand, Lily unleashed a sharp gust of wind, knocking Sophia Lewis, who was shielding Clara Blake, aside. The wind, as if it had eyes, shot straight toward Clara Blake's chest. In that fleeting moment, Clara Blake felt the presence of death drawing near. Thoughts of Peter filled her mind, and regret welled up inside her. She shouldn't die like this. If she did, who would refine the blood elixir for Peter? She closed her eyes, and Peter's innocent, endearing smile occupied her thoughts. Yet, death did not come as she had expected. Instead, she felt a solid barrier shielding her, protecting her from the storm. Slowly opening her eyes, she was met with the sight of a figure standing before her. His white robe fluttered like snow in the wind, and his black hair danced lightly, with a few strands brushing against her face. Just by looking at his back, she could tell that this person was extraordinary. Just by looking at his back, she knew, it was him, Julian Quinn. Julian Quinn blocked a heavy strike from Lily, his cold, alluring eyes fixed on the unparalleled beauty of the Medicine Palace's master. Without saying a word, he gently turned his head to look at Clara Blake. Seeing the blood at the corner of her lips and her pale, bloodless face, a strong murderous intent appeared on Julian Quinn's face. Turning back to glare fiercely at Lily, he angrily said, daring to lay a hand on Julian Quinn's woman. "It seems the Flower Palace master is ready to meet her end." Lily's expression shifted continuously as she looked at Julian Quinn's face. In her stunning eyes, there was a clear trace of surprise and delight. Yet, as soon as Julian Quinn's icy words were spoken, the joy in her eyes vanished without a trace. Her slender figure froze, and her gaze, filled with disbelief, locked onto Julian Quinn. He called her the Flower Palace master? Did he no longer recognize her? Had he forgotten her? No, that couldn't be. Rage surged within Julian Quinn. His wide, snow-white sleeve swept toward the stunned Lily, sending an invisible but ferocious force hurtling in her direction. Lily's face turned pale with fear. He had indeed forgotten her. He was even attacking her for another woman. For the first time, panic overtook Lily as she narrowly dodged Julian Quinn's initial attack. Her slender body soared into the air as she urgently shouted toward him, "Senior brother, it's me, Helen. Senior brother, it's Helen. Helen?" Julian Quinn, about to launch his second attack, paused and looked suspiciously at the woman hovering midair. Only now did he take a good look at her face. He had been so worried about Clara Blake that he hadn't even properly examined his opponent's appearance. It was indeed Helen, the closed-door disciple of their master, Lily. Seeing Julian Quinn stop, Lily quickly landed in front of him, her face filled with excitement. "Senior brother, where have you been all these years? Helen has been searching for you tirelessly." Julian Quinn's expression remained cold. Years ago, at 100 Flowers Valley, their master brought back a young girl, saying she had been chased by a ferocious beast. By chance, he encountered her while traveling through the mountains and saved her. After learning her parents had died, he brought her back to the valley. Seeing her exceptional aptitude, he accepted her as his last disciple. Back then, Lily was only 10 years old, and when they parted, she was just 13. Although they were fellow disciples, he didn't interact much with her. Noticing Julian Quinn's indifference, far from the warmth she had imagined, Lily felt deeply disappointed. He remained the same as before. She had thought that as she grew older, his gaze toward her would change. "Lily, why did you hurt someone?" Julian Quinn's anger showed no sign of subsiding. Even if it was Lily, he demanded an explanation. Lily looked into Julian Quinn's eyes, filled with boundless affection. She gazed at him with infatuation, her emotions plain for anyone to see. Even a fool could discern her feelings. For some reason, Clara Blake felt a pang of bitterness in her heart, her whole body uneasy. Her gaze toward Lily grew more hostile. Lily glanced at Clara Blake, who stood behind Julian Quinn, her face adorned with a gentle smile, her voice smooth. "Senior brother, don't blame her. Helen didn't know she was your friend. Otherwise, she wouldn't have made things difficult for her." Clara Blake, seeing Lily's demeanor, felt even more uncomfortable. She quickly glanced at Julian Quinn, her eyes darting. A sly expression flickered across her pale face. She stepped forward, and before Julian Quinn could speak, she clung to his arm, her voice soft. "So, you're Julian's junior sister. It seems we wouldn't have known each other without a little conflict." The smile on Lily's beautiful face froze instantly. Looking at the two of them standing so close, her eyes seemed to blaze with fury. She raised her gaze to Julian Quinn, pointing at Clara Blake. "You two, what's your relationship?" Clara Blake tightened her grip on Julian Quinn's arm, signaling him to cooperate. She then turned to Lily and said, "He's the father of my child, Lady of the Flower Palace. So, in a way, we're family." Julian Quinn raised an eyebrow, a faint smile playing on his lips. This little trickster, she was clearly trying to provoke Lily. On the other side, Sophia Lewis staggered, her face full of anguish, yet she let out a sigh of relief. Julian had arrived just in time to save Clara Blake. With him there, Clara Blake would surely be safe. Slowly retreating, Sophia carried her wounded heart and body away from the Medicine Palace, distancing herself from him. Lily refused to believe Clara Blake's words. She turned to Julian Quinn's handsome face, his unmatched grace and noble aura, and those mesmerizing eyes that ensnared her completely. "Senior brother, she's lying, isn't she?" Julian Quinn withdrew his arm from Clara Blake's grasp, then pulled her into his embrace. His large hand rested on her slender waist as he inhaled the faint fragrance from her hair, a satisfied smile spreading across his handsome face. Chapter 61, Acting, Who Doesn't Know How to Act? She's not bluffing. Clara Blake forced a wry smile, the corner of her mouth twitching slightly, inwardly cursing this man for daring to take advantage of the situation and openly stealing her soft tofu. Lily, startled, took a few steps back, her gaze darting rapidly between Clara Blake and Julian Quinn. Clara Blake thought Lily would explode in anger immediately, but to her surprise, that stunningly beautiful face blossomed into a smile. Her demeanor returned to its usual gentle self as she softly spoke to Julian Quinn. "I didn't realize it was sister-in-law. If I've offended you, I apologize." Luckily, senior brother arrived in time, otherwise, Helen would have committed a grave mistake. After speaking, Lily cast a gentle glance at Clara Blake, her tender gaze briefly flashing with a cold glint. Clara Blake, sharp as ever, caught sight of that fleeting chill and inwardly sneered, "Acting, huh? Who doesn't know how to act? Too bad I couldn't use Julian Quinn to deal with you today, but mark my words, one day, I, Clara Blake, will personally tear apart this wolf in sheep's clothing." Julian Quinn's face remained impassive, but his eyes were piercingly sharp as he looked at Lily and coldly said, "You know my temperament. If this happens again, don't blame me for being ruthless." Then, shifting his gaze to Clara Blake, his icy demeanor instantly softened. "Let's go," he said gently. The stark contrast in his behavior caused Lily's carefully maintained gentle expression to nearly crumble. Clara Blake glanced at Lily's pale face and, following Julian Quinn's words, leaned slightly against him. "All right," she murmured. The sight of their mutual affection made Lily grit her teeth in fury, but there was nothing she could do. She could only bite down hard and silently vow to tear Clara Blake apart and win back her senior brother. Clara Blake, with her internal injuries, was already struggling to stand upright, let alone walk. Every step was excruciating. She bit down on her lower lip, striving to maintain an air of composure. Beads of sweat dotted her forehead, and her lips turned purple from being bitten too hard. Julian Quinn noticed her condition, reached out to take her pulse, and assessed her injuries. His brows furrowed even tighter, and his thin lips parted slightly. "Damn it," he muttered. He turned his head, glaring at Lily. If not for the fact that she was his junior sister, he would have torn her to pieces. Without hesitation, Julian Quinn scooped Clara Blake into his arms, his tone carrying a hint of displeasure. "Why are you forcing yourself when you're so badly hurt?" Clara Blake's cheeks flushed red as she avoided his gaze and softly replied, "It's nothing. I already took Sophia Lewis's elixir. A few days of rest, and I'll be fine." Mentioning Sophia Lewis, Clara Blake quickly looked around but found no trace of him. Julian Quinn noticed her anxiety and said, "He's gone." Clara Blake exclaimed, "Gone? He still has the Dragon Immortal 8 fruits. Quick, we must find him." Julian Quinn's expression also changed. The Dragon Immortal 8 fruits were one of the 10 spiritual herbs needed to craft the blood elixir, directly tied to Peter's life. How could they be lost? A white figure, as fleeting as smoke, vanished immediately from the medicine palace in the snowy region. Elsewhere, Lily glared furiously in the direction the two had disappeared, her stunning face filled with resentment. "Clara Blake, just wait and see. Let's see who Julian will ultimately choose." The two arrived at the guest manor of the medicine palace. Peter was standing at the door, looking out expectantly. Seeing Julian Quinn carrying his mother back, the boy's previously sorrowful face finally lit up with a smile. As they approached, Clara Blake hurriedly asked Peter, "Where is Uncle Lin?" Peter pouted. His mother had just returned, yet she was already asking about Uncle Lin. She wasn't like this before. Uncle Lin handed something to Uncle Anderson and then left. It seemed like he was injured, but he said it was nothing and staggered away. Handed something to Charles Anderson? Clara Blake instructed Julian Quinn to carry her into the courtyard. Inside the hall, Henry Owen was sitting alone, sipping tea with a somber expression. Charles Anderson was nowhere to be seen. Seeing Julian Quinn carrying Clara Blake into the hall, Henry Owen was stunned. What was going on? Why was Clara Blake suddenly so close to Julian? Julian Quinn showed no intention of putting Clara Blake down, holding her tightly as he strode into the hall. Clara Blake, unable to free herself from Julian Quinn's embrace, rolled her eyes helplessly and asked the dazed Henry Owen, "Where is Charles Anderson?" Henry Owen finally snapped out of it and replied, "He's gone. He said there's an urgent matter in the Vermilion Empire that needs his attention, so he left early." "What? He left?" A sense of unease rose in Clara Blake's heart. She asked Henry Owen, "Did Sophia Lewis come here? What did he give to Charles Anderson?" Henry Owen looked puzzled. "You don't know?" Sophia Lewis said it was the Dragon Immortal 8 fruits. He mentioned that you told him to temporarily hand it over to Charles Anderson and that he would return it to you when you came back. As expected, she knew Sophia Lewis's personality. Once she made a promise, she would undoubtedly fulfill it. But why didn't she personally deliver it to her and instead let Charles Anderson hand it over? Henry Owen noticed Clara Blake's expression constantly shifting and added, "It's strange, really. After Charles Anderson took the Dragon Immortal fruit, he claimed there was an urgent national matter and insisted on leaving immediately. He even told me to inform you to retrieve the Dragon Immortal fruit from his Crown Prince's residence. I offered to help transfer it, but he refused. Don't you think that's odd?" Clara Blake's face darkened. What exactly was Charles Anderson plotting? How dare he take the dragon immortal fruit and leave? If anything happened to it, she would never forgive him. Not wanting to delay, Clara Blake, worried about the dragon immortal fruit, immediately led Peter Blake and Julian Quinn to the relay station. Unexpectedly, all the high-level spirit beasts at the station had already been rented out, leaving only low-level ones. These would take at least 10 days to half a month longer to reach the Vermilion Empire compared to the high-level beasts. Frustratingly, the situation at nearby relay stations was almost the same. They had no choice but to split into two groups and return to the Vermilion Empire on the low-level spirit beasts. Clara Blake, Peter Blake, and Julian Quinn naturally shared one spirit beast, while the others took another. Although Henry Owen was displeased, he dared not oppose Julian Quinn's authority and reluctantly complied. Charles Anderson's hasty departure this time, combined with the high-level spirit beasts being rented out at so many relay stations, doesn't seem like a mere coincidence, Clara Blake remarked. By now, her injuries had significantly improved, and her damaged internal organs were gradually healing thanks to the spirit medicine. Julian Quinn, after tucking a thin blanket over the sleeping Peter, walked over and sat on a wicker chair in front of Clara Blake. He spoke calmly, "Whatever he's scheming, if anything happens to the dragon immortal fruit, I'll make sure he has no place to bury himself." Clara Blake looked up at Julian Quinn's icy expression and softly asked, "But you two are cousins. Could you really go through with it?" Julian Quinn met her gaze, and his cold demeanor instantly softened, replaced by tenderness. His eyebrows slightly arched, and his thin, alluring lips parted gently. "In this world, anyone who dares to harm my son or the mother of my son, be it even the Jade Emperor, I will make them wish for death over life." Was this a promise? Clara Blake's heart skipped a beat. She quickly turned her face away, her eyes falling on her son, peacefully asleep on the bed. That small, adorable face was the softest part of her heart, the most important thing in her life. And now, was there someone else who shared that importance? Chapter 62, Mother, what are you two doing? Looking at her lovely face flushed with red, Julian Quinn couldn't resist reaching out to pinch her chin, gently lifting it. His flirtatious gaze met her stunning phoenix eyes. Her lips, pink like cherry blossoms, her skin as white as jade, he suddenly leaned down and kissed those lips. A wave of unprecedented satisfaction spread through him, he wanted even more. Everything happened so quickly that Clara Blake hadn't even processed what was going on before the man in front of her had already claimed her lips in an intense kiss. Instinctively, she tried to push him away, but it felt as though all her strength had left her. Her soft hands were no match for the iron wall of strength in front of her. His unique scent filled her senses, and her exquisite phoenix eyes fluttered shut. The passionate kiss left her trembling uncontrollably. Unconsciously, her arms wrapped around his neck, her body leaning closer to him without her realizing it. He pulled her into his embrace, seating her on his lap. Even through the fabric of their clothes, the searing warmth made Clara Blake's face flush even deeper. She quickly stood up, trying to escape, but Julian Quinn pulled her back down, holding her even tighter by the waist. Breathing in her unique fragrance, he whispered softly, "Don't move, or I can't guarantee what will happen next." Clara Blake, who had been struggling moments before, suddenly froze and dared not move. Her face turned so red it seemed as if it might bleed. She glared at Julian Quinn angrily and said, "You shameless scoundrel, let me go at once." Seeing her like that, Julian Quinn couldn't help but chuckle softly and gently said, "I only act like an old goat with you." Mom, what are you two doing? Unbeknownst to them, Peter had woken up at some point. Seeing Clara Blake and Julian Quinn tangled together, the boy curiously asked. Clara Blake, startled by her son's voice, somehow found the strength to push Julian Quinn, sending him sprawling to the ground. We're not doing anything, Clara Blake quickly explained to her son, only to see Peter grinning widely. Mom, do you want me to stand guard outside for you too? You can do whatever you want, Peter said mischievously. Clara Blake was left speechless, while Julian Quinn, clutching his aching side as he got up, gave Peter Blake a thumbs up. Peter Blake winked at Julian Quinn and said, Uncle Quinn, you better take good care of my mom. Who knows, if she's happy, she might let you be my dad. Julian Quinn's smile froze instantly. Why did that sentence sound so strange? A month later, Clara Blake and her companions finally returned to the Vermilion Empire. However, the Vermilion Empire had changed drastically. It turned out that during Charles Anderson's absence, the Crown Prince had led a group of loyalists into the palace, forcing King Anderson to abdicate in an attempt to seize the throne. King Anderson resisted for a while but eventually agreed to step down. Unexpectedly, just as the Crown Prince was about to ascend the throne, Charles Anderson abruptly returned. He swiftly mobilized his forces to attack the royal capital. The Crown Prince, panicked, tried to use the king's life as leverage, but he accidentally killed King Anderson instead. Using the pretext of avenging his father, Charles Anderson personally executed the Crown Prince. 3 days ago marked the day Charles Anderson ascended the throne. Clara Blake sneered. With Charles Anderson's scheming nature, he had likely anticipated the Crown Prince's actions long ago. The death of King Anderson was probably not as simple as the rumors suggested. If the Crown Prince had intended to kill King Anderson, why wait until Charles Anderson returned? She didn't care whether Charles Anderson was a prince or an emperor, all she wanted was the dragon immortal 8 fruits. As she was about to head into the palace, a middle-aged man with a familiar face blocked her path and handed her a letter. The man told Clara Blake that the 4th prince had entered the palace 3 days ago and hadn't returned. The letter was written by him before entering the palace, instructing the city guards to deliver it to her immediately upon seeing her. Clara Blake frowned and quickly opened the letter to read it. It turned out her grandfather had long anticipated that Charles Anderson would summon him to the palace and also predicted that Charles Anderson would use his life to threaten her. In the letter, her grandfather advised her to take Peter and leave the Vermilion Empire, never to return. He wrote that he had lived long enough and didn't want her to risk her life for an old man like him. The paper, soaked with the scent of ink, was crumpled in her palm, transformed into ashes by her spiritual energy, and scattered through her fingers, vanishing into the wind. She turned to look at Julian Quinn, who was buying toy figurines with Peter by the roadside. After a moment of thought, she stepped over to the two of them. Could you take Peter to the Sky Splitter sect to play for a few days? I'll go find Charles Anderson myself. With Julian Quinn's temperament, he would undoubtedly eliminate Charles Anderson. However, if Charles Anderson were to die, so be it. Yet, her external techniques and the dragon immortal 8 fruits were still in his possession, she could not allow any mistakes regarding these. Julian Quinn noticed the furrow in her brows, his expression darkening slightly as if he understood something, but he still nodded and said, "Don't worry, leave Peter to me." Entrusting Peter to him gave her great peace of mind. There was no one more suitable for the task than him. Watching Julian Quinn lead Peter Blake away, she finally turned and resolutely made her way toward the royal palace. At the palace gates, she announced her name. A waiting female official promptly stepped forward, leading her into the royal city toward the imperial study hall where Charles Anderson resided. Inside the imperial study hall, behind a long table intricately carved with dragons and phoenixes, Charles Anderson, dressed in a bright yellow imperial robe, was bent over, reviewing memorials. His long black hair cascaded down his robe, and his brows were slightly furrowed, as if deep in thought. Hearing a faint sound, he raised his head and saw a graceful woman in white